Okay. Oh,
That's funny.
that was my bad. Here I am blaming my funny and it was mine. All right. Welcome everybody for our first meeting of the Hayden Island Community Safety Initiative. We're so glad everybody can make it. I mean, we got a full room here. We got a bunch of people that are also joining us on Zoom. So we can tell that this is an important thing for our island here. We want to talk about the safety and security of our island. There's a lot of people here that want to do that. Maybe you can. We can close this door. Sure, I'll take it. Thanks. People can enter from the back just before people coming. First of all, I'd like to just introduce, we're really lucky to have some great guest speakers with us today. Yeah, Mark Wells over here. I'll tell a little bit more about what he does, what he's going to talk about coming up. And Mike Miloff is also going to be talking. We also possibly have a couple more officers that are coming that will be available for our question and answer period at the end from the Portland Police Department, just to be able to give their perspective. If you want to have some questions for them and you want to ask them some questions of why things are the way they are on the island, you can talk to them. They have a very good perspective. Just a few housekeeping things. We're going to save all the questions till the end. So go ahead and write some questions down. We do have some paper and pen in the back, and if you want to write your questions down so that you don't forget them, you can do that. Save the questions till the end. Make sure your phones are turned off or turned down. Restrooms are out the back over there, and take a right and you'll see the restrooms. You need to use the restrooms. And I think that's it. All right. So the purpose of our meeting here is just introduction. This is an introduction to the Hayden Island. I'm just going to call it CSI from now on. I'll shorten it down. Hayden Island CSI. We're going to introduce who we are. We're going to talk about the problem, the solution, and then we're going to have some questions and answers at the end. So that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about. First of all, who we are. This all began probably it was about a year and a half ago in the parking lot of Safeway. A couple ladies were out chasing around people that were coming through their neighborhoods on a regular basis. And so they asked the neighborhood, hey, is there anybody that would like to start a neighborhood watch? And so Tracy and I volunteered. We showed up in the Safeway parking lot for the neighborhood watch. And this all began from the neighborhood watch. From there, we ended up having about 60 members join the neighborhood watch. And during last summer, during COVID, well, we had the neighborhood watch going. And we had the same 6 to 8 people that were going out on a regular basis in those late hours between like 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning, and observing who was out there and then making reports to the police if we noticed suspicious behavior, and also just letting people know that we're out on the island at that time. Hey, this is the neighborhood watch, and if you're going to be out here in these hours on our island, we're going to be watching you. And we had a lot of success, and it was a learning experience going out there. And the thing was that there were people that were obviously there that were casing and were getting ready to commit crimes, that were getting ready to break into cars. But just us being there and saying, and we were just very friendly every time. Hey, how you guys doing? You look like you might be needing some help around here. We're just part of the neighborhood watch, and we're just watching everybody. We want to make sure everybody out here that's out at this time of night is being safe. And so we're just watching out for your safety as well as safety for everybody else. And they would leave and then leave the island and they go someplace else. And so it was rewarding to know that we were making a difference, that we were stopping some crimes. Problem was, it was the same 6 or 8 people, and it was unsustainable. We had 60 people that were signed up for the neighborhood watch, and a lot of them didn't want to come out. And I understood because number one, those hours, 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning, they're not comfortable hours to be out, looking around, being out there, feeling like you're kind of by yourself. And it can be scary sometimes. I mean, there were people, they would try to be intimidating by their actions. They were attempting to be intimidating, but we were always just very kind, just wave and smile and say, hey, we're just watching. We're just out here looking out for everybody's safety. And while there were some scary experiences, there was nothing anything really bad happened. But I understood why people didn't want to go out there. And since then, things have gotten even worse. I mean, since that time, we've had more shootings, much more brandishing of weapons on the island. And so being part of the neighborhood watch now, we don't even recommend anybody going out in those hours anymore because it's not worth it. It's not safe anymore to be out there. But that's how this got started, was once we realized, okay, the neighborhood watch, it was working and it had success, but it's unsustainable. We got to do something else. And Tracy and I were trying to figure out, this is my wife, Tracy, we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do next. You know, what's the next step? And it just happens that we were approached by a group of people in the next mortgage down from us. And they heard also about all the crime that was happening on the island. And they said, we want to be a part of that. We want to do something, we want to be a part of the solution. And so we started having some meetings together. We started getting together so far our office, which is Stanford's. We get together in Stanford. Especially we try to get together on a Wednesday night when the wines are half price. But we get together out there and we were trying to talk about what our solutions would be. What are we going to do for a solution to this? And we started, we were trying to talk to the experts. Mike Liloff here. I don't know if you know Mike Liloff. Mike Liloff is a former commander for the North Precinct, and now he's the district commander for United Security. And so he has a very broad knowledge of crime deterrence as well as private security. And so we had him join us. We were talking about, what can we do for a solution? And so the rest of this is the results of that brainstorming of what can we do? What can we do as an island? What can we do as a community? And all of this stuff that I'm going to be talking about from now on is not Hayden Island CSI. This is going to be Hayden Island, the community. Everybody's going to have to get together and work together. Again, same 6 or 7 people that were doing, the neighborhood watch stuff can't sustain the portions that we're going to be talking about next. It's going to take a group effort from everybody on the island, but I know we can do it, and I know it's going to cause the crimes to go down if we do start doing it. And so, first of all, I want to talk about the problem. So everybody knows there's a problem. I mean, that's why the room's full here. That's why we have so many people on Zoom. Everybody knows there's a problem, but everybody mostly knows about the problem in their neighborhood, mostly about the things that are happening in their parking lot, people that are happening to their friends. And so I just want to kind of go over a little bit. For example, in the neighborhoods. One neighborhood just reported in another meeting that I attended that in a 2-week period, they had 15 car break-ins and a shooting. And they're just over a 2-week period, 15 car break-ins. And that's not an atypical 2 weeks for them. They've had multiple break-ins like that, and as well as catalytic converters being stolen, like everybody knows about, as well as vehicles being stolen. Another neighborhood, one of the ladies we were talking to, almost every car in that neighborhood over the last 2 years has been broken into. Almost every single one has had a window broken into and been entered at some point over the last 2 years. And just like I'm sure other neighborhoods where you guys are coming from, you can tell me stories. We can sit here and tell stories all night about the crimes that's happening in each person's neighborhood. As far as the businesses, we've been working and talking to a lot of the businesses on the island. And many of these businesses are having shoplifters typically between 20 to 30 times a day. And when I heard that, the first thing that came to my mind was, that's unsustainable. These businesses, I mean, even the large businesses, Target, Home Depot, the large businesses, that's not sustainable for these businesses to have that kind of material just going out the door for free on a regular basis. And so we're going to have to do something. Otherwise, the businesses are going to start leaving the island. And as you know, we've already had one large business leave the island because of the crime. And if that continues, then as the businesses leave, then we start to have a lower quality of life, and more and more criminals are able to come in with more and more criminals come in as.
I'm so sorry.
No problem, no problem.
I will settle down.
And so we're gonna have to work together with the businesses to also take care of this crime. Otherwise, they're gonna start leaving. And we can't have the businesses leaving and leaving us with an island that's void, that has a void that needs to be filled, because that will be filled with more criminal activity. And as you know, just within the last 2 months, like I talked about before, it's been escalating even worse, becoming more violent. We've had, in the last 2 months, we started to have more and more shootings on the island. I mean, we've been here for 11 years. Have you ever heard of shootings on Hayden Island before? We've never had shootings on Hayden Island before. And now we're starting to have, we came home from Mexico one weekend, and there were 4 shootings in the weekend prior to us coming home. Just in one weekend, there were 4 shootings. And so, as you know, that's part of the problem. So you say, okay, if that's the problem, why aren't the police responding to that? You know, where's the police if we're having such a huge problem? Why aren't we having the police presence out here?
Can I ask you something right now?
No, not right now. The questions are gonna be towards the end. Okay?
Okay.
You missed the first part. That was one thing.
I know, but we're in the stores, people are shooting
Yeah.
on the streets.
You save your questions to the end. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You're saying where are the police? Well, here's a few statistics on why the police aren't out here on a regular basis. 5 years ago, Portland police had over 1,100 officers to patrol and to prevent crimes, to be proactive in trying to prevent crimes. Right now, we're down to that's a little over 790, and it's going down, and it's reducing pretty rapidly. It's going down. There's many reasons for that, and a lot of these things are political. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit. However, that's the facts, okay? And we're just going to deal with the facts. There used to be 1,100, now there's 790. In the North Precinct, it's 5,500 or 55. It's 55 square miles. At nighttime, the evening shift, their minimum staffing, which they're down to quite regularly now, is 12 officers. 12 officers to cover all the way from Forest Park, because it includes the Forest Park area, all the way out past the airport to the Marine Drive, to the floating homes areas on the other side of the airport. And then south down to the Central Precinct, which is goes downtown. So that whole area, you have 12 officers to patrol that area. The other part of the puzzle on that is this year so far, Portland has had 70 homicides. The worst year prior to this was 66 homicides. And you have to go clear back to 1986 in order to have the 66 homicides. And we're not even at the end of the year yet. We still have a few months left to go. Also, Portland has had over 1,030 shootings. I thought it was me again, but it's not me. All right. Okay, through September, just through September, so not including October, just through September, I looked at the statistics, we had 1,030 shootings in Portland. In 1999, prior to this large increase, for the whole year, Portland had 388. And you say, why does that make such a huge difference? Well, here's an example. Those 12 officers that are on that night shift, when there's one shooting, it takes about 8 officers at least to go respond to one shooting. So now you have a shooting, and there's 4 officers that are remaining to patrol, to answer every call for 55 square miles. So when we call and say, hey, somebody is cutting off a catalytic converter over here, and they've had 2 shootings that night, what kind of a response are we going to get? Nothing. And just doing the math, there are 3 different precincts in the Portland area. You have 3 precincts. And so just doing a quick, division, that comes out to more than one shooting per day per precinct. And so that just explains why we don't have the police officers that are available in order to respond to our thefts and our what would be considered smaller crimes. Things that are happening here and there, the vehicle thefts, all of those things. So that's the problem. So you say, okay, that problem's so huge. What are we gonna do? One thing I do want to talk about here is that, you know, when we start talking about the police, we start talking about, you know, fixing the problem of the police, that becomes a political response. And Hayden Island CSI, we are staying away from the political arena, okay? Because that can become very divisive issue. Everybody has an idea of how to fix that portion, how to fix the police portion. We're not going to get involved in that because there's plenty of organizations that are involved in that. And everybody should get involved in the way that they feel is the correct way for that. Our goal is to take the current situation of where we're at and to respond to that in the very best way we can. Okay, we're taking the facts. This is where we're at. What is going to be our response? What can we do in order to fix the problem? And that's what we're going to talk about now, the solution. The solution, we have a three-part solution. Very first part is the easiest part, then it gets a little bit more difficult, and then finally the third part is even more difficult. But it's very doable, and it can be a solution that has worked for others, and it's a solution that we're going to be committed to pursuing. All right, so the first part of the solution is reporting. Right now, when you look at these statistics, and you look at the crimes that are committed on Hayden Island, it doesn't look like we have a problem. The statistics look the same as they have for years and years and years. It looks like it's a pretty flat graph. As far as number of thefts, number of vehicle thefts, number of shoplifting, it looks pretty much flat. But we all know that's not the case. But everybody also knows what the reason is. The reason is that it takes time to go into the computer and make a report. And it takes time to go do those things, and you're not going to see an immediate benefit from it. You're probably not going to see a police officer show up on your doorstep and say, "Hey, I know where your stuff is. I got it back for you. Here it is." You're not going to have, you know, a police officer come out and dusting for prints and looking for, you know, trying to figure out the best way to track down your items. And so there's no immediate benefit that we see from actually making those reports. However, it's super important to make those reports anyhow, because the data is what drives the response. The data is what drives the allocation of resources. And especially when we have such limited resources, when we have such few police officers that are available, we really want to make sure that they're allocated where the problem is. And so if we're not documenting and we're not showing there's a problem, we're not going to be allocated the resources. And so that's why it's so important to report the problem. Another reason some people don't like to report is they just don't want to get involved. They don't want to have their name out there. They don't want to have to try to identify people, because some of the people that are some of the people that are out there on the island, and some of the people that are committing these crimes are kind of scary. And so, you know, afraid if we're reporting and we're getting active and we're getting involved, then we're kind of putting ourselves out there. So that's another reason people don't want to report. So that's where we're coming up with a solution, and we're trying to make it, first of all, very easy to go and report. So we're trying to make our Hayden Island CSI a go-to place for all type of criminal inquiries, criminal information. And so if you go to our website, the very first thing you'll see is right up on top, it says that this is an emergency, dial 911. And that's always the first place you go in case of emergency, dial 911. It's always the first place to go. Then the next thing down you'll see is that if you want to file a report, a police report, or actually if you want to file a report, click here. You'll see a button that says file a report. And the next button down is to file a police report. And then the next button down is filing a report for Hayden Island CSI. So we're really hoping to get everybody involved. And first of all, filing the police report. And then some of the things as you go through there don't qualify or are hard to get the report to go through. But the very next thing down is to send a report to us. And it's very easy form to fill out. And so we're gonna take that data and we're gonna capture all the extra data that is unable to go to the police department. And we're gonna capture that data as well and keep track of that and be able to use that and be able to work with the police with that data. So number one is reporting, like I said. And the other reason that reporting is important is as we take these steps to try to start correcting the problem, how are we knowing if we're fixing the problem? And the only way you can do it is if you're tracking good data. And if we can see that we have, what we're expecting, what we're hoping to see is actually a very sharp increase in the amount of reported crimes as everybody on the island starts to report more. Everybody on the island starts to report all the things that are happening. So we're hoping to see a sharp increase in the crimes right off the bat. And then we're hoping once we start taking some of our solutions, that will start to come back down. And so that's the goal. And as we take our corrective actions, we're hoping to see and be able to fine tune it and be able to see what's working. Well, how can we take the resources that we have and better allocate them in order to make these solutions work even better? And the other reason we want to be reporting is so we can share information with each other so that everybody knows what's happening on the island, so that when one community, let's say one community notices a specific vehicle that has come through and cut off a catalytic converter and they get a picture of it. Well, it doesn't do much good for everybody else on the island if they just distribute that within that one community. Sure, that one community is watching out for that vehicle, but that truck is going to go to another community, and then it's going to end up over at the businesses. But if we can share that with everybody on the island, now everybody's on watch for it right from the beginning. And as soon as it starts coming by, we let them know that they're being watched and that if they're going to be on our island, they're going to be being watched. So we can share that information. Which takes me into the next part of the solution, the communication and organization. Hey, down at CSI, that is all we really are. We're an organization to organize. That's where, if you look on the website and you go down to the bottom, you'll see down there a diagram, and what it shows is hey, down the CSI in the center, and then all the available resources around the outside, and which is all the neighborhoods, all the businesses, the police department, the city resources, private resources, everything out. And so we're kind of like a consortium in the center that's going to be taking in all the data, taking in all the information, and then distributing it out. So we're looking for all the available resources that we can, and then finding the best way to allocate those resources in order to solve the problem that we're having here on the island. How are we going to do that? First of all, like I mentioned, is identifying what resources are available. And the next thing is what I also talked about was the data. We're going to start inputting all the data, accepting all the data, and then sharing all the data with everybody else. One way we're doing that is through our monthly newsletter. And how many people are signed up for the monthly newsletter already? Okay, a few of you. When you go on our website, you'll see an area where you can sign up for the monthly newsletter. And when you receive that, it is going to show you all of the crime data from the previous month. It'll also tell you if there's any trends. It'll also give some tips and advice on how to protect yourself. And that's the first way we're trying to connect everybody and getting everybody on the same page of sharing the information is through that monthly newsletter. Another thing that we're doing is we're taking all of the current security companies that are on the island and trying to start getting them to communicate with each other. So right now on the island, there's at least 15 different companies, entities, whether it's neighborhoods or businesses that are hiring private security. And they're using 10 different security companies right now. And of those, they're not communicating with each other at all. They weren't communicating with each other at all. So we're just starting to get them communicating with each other now. And so, for example, our security company, we live right in Jansen Beach Mortgage, right behind Home Depot. And our security officer is now communicating on a regular basis with mall security. And so when the mall security officer sees something, calls up our security officer. When our security officer sees something, calls up the mall officer. And so they're working together. And then our goal is to get all 15 of those different areas working together and sharing information. Because that's what's happening, is that criminals are going to an area, if they get chased off, they just move over to another one. And when nobody's communicating with each other, there's no way to prepare for it, and they just get moved around. So that's one of the goals, is getting all the security companies working, talking together. Kind of along with that is there used to be a mall security meeting that happened every month. And all the businesses in the mall would get together and talk about security. And that hasn't been happening for a while now. So we're gonna be encouraging the businesses and talking to them and trying to get them to reestablish that mall security meeting. We've been having conversations with a lot of these businesses, and these businesses are very eager to work on something together. I mean, as you can imagine, when they're getting shoplifting 20 to 30 times a day, and they realize it's not sustainable, they're very eager to work with us and do something that's different. Once we finally start to get some funds and start to get some money coming in, our first full-time position is going to be for an information coordinator, a person whose primary job is just taking in information and then distributing it out, and trying to do that as close to real time as possible. So that's the goal, is to get to that place where we have somebody who's doing that on the island all the time. Also, kind of just to share a little bit more about what we're doing with the businesses. So right now we have one business liaison officer. So we have one person who's been going around and talking to the different businesses, and she's managed to make connections with 23 different businesses. And we kind of realized that's about enough for one person in order to start talking to. We have about 160 businesses on the island. And so we're looking to have more people that she can work with that can talk to the other businesses. And because the businesses that she just talked to, like I said, are very ready to start working together. They're ready to start organizing. They're ready to start having people talking and sharing that information. And so it's just a matter of having the manpower and the man hours in order to do this, to organize and connect everybody. The next thing, after we have our one paid position of our coordinator, is the third portion of our goal, and that is we'd like to do is have our own island security. We want to have our own private security that is on our island, that way we can have our sole purpose of being able to, when you have something going on, you see a prowler, or you see some suspicious behavior, you can make a phone call, and there will be somebody there within 30 seconds to a minute, because we'll have our own security on the island. What that's called, this isn't a new idea. This isn't something that I just came up with on my own. This is actually an idea that's being used around the country. We already have 3 of these districts. It's called an enhanced service district, and we already have 3 of them in the Portland area. The largest one is called Clean and Safe, and it has 213 blocks of downtown Portland, and they have their own security, and they work very closely with the Portland Police Department. And we are extremely fortunate tonight to have the director of Clean and Safe here with us tonight to share about what is an enhanced service district, and how it can be beneficial to Hayden Island, how it can work with our crime problem that we have here in Hayden Island. And that's Mark Wells. And so, Mark, hand it over to you. Mark's just taking this time and coming out here and sharing us with a couple hours tonight, just because he cares about the island. I mean, he's not getting paid any extra for it. He cares about the island. He cares about the future of it, and he has a wealth of knowledge that he could talk for a long time.
And And he's only giving me like 30 minutes.
All right.
You don't mind if I take my mask down? Is that okay?
That's fine. You're good, boy.
Can everybody hear me okay? So again, yeah, my name is Mark Wells. Thank you for coming. Before I get started, I want to say a big thank you to Randy and to his wife, and I'm so sorry to forget your name, Tracy, and to the board of CSI. I spent 11 years in the city of Portland in the crime prevention program, and I have to also, Steve Jaco, I haven't seen you in a long time. We worked on many a drug house and some floating drug houses. It's good to see you. But from 2008 to 2019, I worked for the city's crime prevention program. And my first 5 years, I was assigned to 8 neighborhoods in North Portland, Hayden Island being one of those neighborhoods, and I actually lived right in Overlook. And so just like Mike Leloff will talk a little bit about, Hayden Island is very near and dear to here because I worked for you for 5 years. Well, the whole time I was the same employee I worked for you, but I was up assigned to Hayden Island. So I have a lot of familiarity with the island, and Randy reached out to me talking about kind of what they're working on. And so I think it's really, really important. The whole reason we're here today is because some of your neighbors who care dearly about you and the island have put a lot of time and energy into getting something going. So I just want to thank you very much for doing that. And I would put a challenge out to all of you, and this is after 11 years. A big part of what I did in crime prevention was all of our community crime prevention programs. So Neighborhood Watch, Business Watch. We started livability teams. I did a lot of work with Pam in the Hayden Island manufactured home community. And it really works. It really does work. But it all takes a couple of people to put a little bit of extra time in that. And the measure of success, I would challenge all of my Neighborhood Watch groups. The measure of success of that initial meeting, which we are kind of at tonight, the initial meeting, is if 2 or 3 years from now, the group is still working on it and there's some sustainability to it. Because you heard from Randy right at the beginning, it's very common. You have a problem, an issue. It's easy to get motivated in a crisis or when something happens, but it's the longevity to it. And I know this isn't a news flash. It's going to take some time to turn things around on the island. It's going to take time for the criminal element that is doing very well on the island as they are in the city to say, you know what, I'm not going to Hayden Island anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else. And I used to joke when I was in crime prevention, hopefully we'll send them to Vancouver or Salem. And we won't just kick them over to Bridgeton or down to Kenton. But my motto is that there's nothing more important than your family. You get to know your neighbors and you work on your community. So again, that's my long thank you acknowledgement for what you're doing. So please support the CSI as much as you can. When you go home tonight, people that couldn't come tonight, please challenge them to get involved. Because if everybody in this room spends an hour or two a month on this program and you get 4 or 5 other neighbors to spend 2 or 3 hours a month on this and you grow it, you will be successful. It's not going to be perfect. There will always be crime on the island, but you can certainly reduce it. And again, I started probably about 400 neighborhood watches throughout the city, in every neighborhood in the city of Portland. And as Officer Jaco can attest to, some of these neighborhoods had significant crime and violent crime. And the only way that we collectively were able to solve it was through the community working. The police can only do so much. They can only do, search warrants or whatever it is, but it's the totality of that neighborhood and getting that criminal element to move along. So there's my old crime prevention community plug. Please support this group. What I want to talk to you about tonight really is my current position. As Randy mentioned, I'm the Director of Operations for Downtown Portland Clean and Safe, and we are one of 3 enhanced service districts. So I want to kind of give you an overview. If you're not familiar, some of you may be familiar with our program. I want to give you kind of an overview of what we do downtown and what the other enhanced service districts do, and kind of share some models, because the key to success too is not reinventing the wheel. It's taking best practices. It's learning what other community groups have done in the past and are doing now, and then replicating it. We had kind of a motto in crime prevention is we would poach from other great crime prevention coordinators and crime prevention programs throughout the country. And so, you don't want to start from scratch. Clean and Safe is again one of 3 enhanced service districts. We're the oldest one in the city. We were formed in 1994. We're unique in that we're 213 blocks downtown, and we are funded exclusively through our business owners we call ratepayers. We have 426 property owners that pay a fee every year. It's all prorated based on size, square footage, occupancy of the building. We are in a contract with the city of Portland. And you might have caught it. We were in the news quite a bit in the last month or so. I see some heads shaking. And actually, we had some wonderful letters of support from Hayden Island. So I want to thank you all for that. We're on a 10-year contract with the city of Portland. And I'll talk a little bit of difference about the contracts and some of those things. But we're unique in that we are funded. We're a nonprofit. We are actually an affiliate of the Portland Business Alliance. And we are funded, again, exclusively through ratepayers. You don't get a dime in city or public funding. And this was obviously started many, many years ago, almost 3 decades ago, because the business community said we want to enhance what the city of Portland's doing to make sure that the downtown business district is safe, is clean, and prosperous. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, I've been downtown lately, Mark, and I don't know if I'd say it's safe and clean, or clean and safe. And I would say that's true, certain parts of it are. I would say to this, though, imagine downtown, we have two main programs that I run: our security program, which is run through right currently our vendors, Portland Patrol. And we put out anywhere from about 6 to 12 officers, 2 shifts a day, both a combination of armed and unarmed officers. And then we have a wonderful cleaning program through Central City Concern. And I would say it's the best part of my job is we have a program called Clean Start, and those are individuals that are all in recovery. Most were homeless. And for a lot of those folks, it's their first job in many, many years, or their first real job. And I brag a lot in public as much as I can about a wonderful woman by the name of Laura Brown. She's my vendor contact for Central City Concern. She got out of prison 16 years ago. Nobody would hire her. So she got a job with Clean Start, with Clean and Safe, and they call them barrel pushers. You'll see them downtown. And I thought that was kind of not a very nice term, but they take pride in it. I'm a barrel pusher and I push my barrel around. She is now the business operations manager for Central City Concern and manages 5 huge contracts. They call her mom because she literally takes people off the street, gives them a job, gets them into housing, gets their driver's license back, and it works really well. And so I've had a few people say, well, you know, Mark, it's not too clean and safe downtown, but some of the statistics are amazing. And I'll talk about kind of cleaning and then really focus in on security, because that's why we're here tonight. But our cleaners do about a ton of trash a day, again, 213 blocks. Last year, we picked up 75,000 needles, did over 80,000 graffiti tags, and I think it was 60,000, we call them biohazards. And you can use your imagination of what biohazards entail. It's disgusting. And now we're actually working on rats and vector control and all of that. We're trying to get the county to help us with all the rat problems downtown. So I would say, imagine if downtown did not have that core group of cleaners downtown, and then with security, it would be a whole lot worse. And it was interesting in the contract negotiation, we had some folks from Central Precinct and saying that basically Clean and Safe has been kind of a stopgap for public safety in Central Precinct, especially downtown, for the last 20 years. And as Randy talked about with staffing, with police staffing, don't quote me on this, but the last thing I heard was that we're probably not going to see an increase in officers probably for the next 3 or 4 years. Where it said, last year I heard was 793 is what I heard. If anyone has a new number, please shoot it out. But we have a couple big retirement bumps coming up. We have one next year. We have another one next year. And we're losing on average 3 to 7 officers, what we call lateral attrition, meaning we have Portland police officers and they go to any Oregon law enforcement agency. And as long as they've been hired in the last 8-ish years, they take their full retirement with them. So what's key about our security program is a couple things. One is that we work absolutely in partnership with Central Precinct. We actually, Clean and Safe pays for the salary of 4 bike officers, Portland police bike officers. We call them 2800s. And it's going to be hard to replicate that on the island. So a lot of what I'm talking about, like, that sounds great, Mark, but I don't know if we get 4, I don't think we can get 4 bike cops up here. But I want to explain kind of how we call the magic to what we do, and that is absolutely something that you can replicate up here. Our security officers, our Portland Bike Patrol officers carry the same security radio that our security officers carry. And our security officers, even though all of our armed officers are all former law enforcement, they have to have 3 years of full-time sworn law enforcement experience. We do not arrest, detain, or touch anybody unless it's in self-defense. In fact, in the 28 years we've been there, we've never fired a single shot. We have had a Clean and Safe officer killed in the line of duty. And it has always been a pretty dangerous job, and it's getting more and more dangerous, especially in Old Town and those areas. But the idea is that when a business owner downtown in our district, if they have a non-emergency issue where there's no violence or no weapon, because again, you've heard it today already, right? It's a 911 call. But we take on average about 1,500 calls a month that if we, Clean and Safe Security, were not in that district, would have to go to non-emergency. And I've heard non-emergency said by many business owners as the non-response number. I'm sure you've caught it in the media. And for 11 years when I was in crime prevention, one of my core jobs was to teach and train and empower the community to use 911 and non-emergency. And I have to say a caveat that our 911 and non-emergency call takers and dispatchers are kind of the unsung heroes in our public safety system. I was an officer out in Washington County for some time, and I worked with a Hillsborough police officer. He lasted about 4 months at Portland 911 Center. And he said, I'd rather chase an armed robber with a bazooka than work in that job, because you spend 10 to 12 hours a day talking to people on the worst day of their life, right? And unlike a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, you can't go out and actually, you're behind the phone. So that system too is that if clean and safe security was not there, those are about 1,500 calls a month that probably would not get answered at all. Those are things like trespass, low-level disorder, someone's outside, no violence, no weapon, but they're yelling, screaming, making their patrons feel unsafe. We do hundreds of unwanted calls. Again, these are, technically they're crimes. They're trespass or somebody that's on private property that shouldn't be, and has been asked to leave. But again, no violence, no weapon. There's no imminent threat. And our officers are able to go out there, assess the situation, and most of the time, we get that person to calm down. We respectfully ask that person to please get up and move their belongings. We do not sweep camps. We do not move camps, nor does the Portland Police Bureau. We're not allowed to. I don't want to get into that debate. But we get a lot of compliance through being out there. And the biggest thing that we have is it's the same officers working in the same area. And so they know the business owners, they know the individuals on the street, and they work really closely with our cleaners who literally a lot of them came from those streets and kind of work on that. And so for the ratepayers who are paying, and you think about it, you have a business downtown. Portland's one of the most taxed cities in the nation. You're paying your property tax and all your other taxes. And then on top of that, you're paying a clean and safe, tax or a fee. But the beauty of it is that you can get a professionally trained security officer in about 5 minutes or less to come out to your business, assess the situation, and if needed, immediately reach out to a Portland police officer. And what's nice, again, we meet every Wednesday with the leadership of our security company, with our precinct commander, with our sergeant of our bike unit, and we're constantly sharing information, locations, and all of that. And that's how we're able to help our police officers be extremely efficient. And with the lack of staffing we have in the police bureau, one of the biggest challenges, there's very few resources for investigations and follow-up, especially for low level, even felony property crimes, burglaries, large thefts of retail operations. We simply don't have the detectives to follow up on that because of our violent crime. We're working on it. A big thing that we run, that Clean and Safe has been running for about 20 years, is something called the Downtown Security Providers Network, or DSN, and that's something that I shared with Randy and I'll share with you. One of the keys that we've been successful in doing is in the 213 blocks, we have a monthly meeting, and it's not every single buddy is involved, but we have more than 12 security companies doing business downtown. We have many. Some are very small, some are very large. But on a monthly basis, we have a freestanding meeting that I run in partnership with our neighborhood response team, the Central Precinct, with our precinct lieutenant, and then with our senior neighborhood deputy DA, the DA's office. And we have basically a running list of all the security providers. We have leadership of all the loss prevention programs, so like REI, Columbia, all the big box stores, and a lot of the smaller retails. And then for the smaller businesses that don't have a corporate loss prevention program, then a lot of times it's a manager, and a lot of our members of the DSN, again, the Downtown Security Network, are business owners themselves. We get standing updates from the police bureau. We get standing updates from the district attorney's office. And then the key part to the DSN is what we call our DSN alert system. And so let's just say we were all on the DSN. You had someone come into your business. You got a good video of that person. They took off. You can simply fill out a form. It's a template. You email that to me. We generate it into what we call a DSN alert. And then that goes out to all of our 180 plus people. It's a growing network that goes out, and also with our police. And what that does is, we have what we call them frequent flyers. A lot of people that are committing tons of shoplifting. Same thing, it sounds like you're still sadly seeing here. It's pretty prolific. It is all over the city. But you'll have one person that could shoplift, 8 or 9 or 10 businesses in a day. And again, that theme, in which I can't echo enough, thank you, Randy, is reporting. I had a very cheesy slogan, and you can make fun of me. I said, report crime each and every time. It really does matter. I actually developed a whole billboard thing for the city and a whole PSA campaign. Nobody in City Hall liked it. I don't know why. I thought it was genius, right? You'd see it all over. And I would always say, I went to Seattle a couple of years back, and a bus drove by, and it said, "Know your non-emergency number." And then the tagline was, "Call us, bug us, we work for you," right? It was a whole know your non-emergency number. And Portland doesn't do that. And actually in my position now, I'm bugging people again to kind of get back on that. But the DSN alert is that you've got 10 victims of crime with one suspect. And a lot of those folks have good evidence, right? Even if it's just a high resolution video image of that suspect. We're able to put that information out to all the other businesses so that they're aware of it. And when that individual walks in their business, the business manager goes, "Excuse me, I know who you are. You're trespassing. Please turn around and leave right now, or we're calling the police," right? And then for a lot of our folks, we're able to compile a lot of this information, and we work very closely with our 3 neighborhood response team officers and the sergeant. They do the bulk of our follow-up, and I'm not sure what the status of the officers can talk a little bit maybe about what your neighborhood response team is doing up in North, because I'm not quite in tune with North Precinct as well. But what we're able to do is compile a lot of this information, and then we literally hand it off to the neighborhood response team officer, and we have 10 victims who are willing to file complaints and move forward with those cases, which is critical. We have good, fresh evidence, and then that officer is able to build a case, put a flyer together, and it's not uncommon from when the DSN alert goes out, that suspect can be identified literally within a couple hours. A business owner will email me and say, I know exactly who that is. He was arrested here last week. I have his mugshot. I know his information. And the 2 or 3 officers that we have that do almost all of our follow-up for low-level crime and property crime in Central Precinct, we're able to make them really, really efficient. And so that model and that group is growing a little bit more. And as you move forward in this process, sharing information and letting your police and your district attorney's office be as efficient as possible is really, really key. Because again, our resources are only going to get smaller over the next couple of years, right? And so it works pretty well. The other 2 enhanced service districts, we have the Central East Side Industrial Council. They're the newest enhanced service district. They're a little bit different model. They get funded by parking meter rates, so they do get some tax money. There's another enhanced service district in the Lloyd Center called Go Lloyd. And I believe Mike's going to talk a little bit about their safety meeting and how they're kind of compiling information and putting it together. But the theme with our dwindling police resources is it's kind of that old mantra that it takes a village, and it really is. It's always been important, right? We've always needed to have neighbors working together, communicating, sharing information. You are the eyes and the ears for your police bureau. That's always been the case, right? But it is so more now than ever. And so I would highly encourage you to look at that model. And what's key about it is that if everybody is spending some time and some money putting their resources together, and again, I'm not a sales guy like I'm here on my own time because I love Hayden Island and I support you all. I'm not selling anything other than community building and maximizing your resources. And what we're seeing too downtown, and we're seeing all throughout the city, is a lot of neighborhoods and business districts are asking the same questions that you're asking. And I feel very lucky that I have a lot of contacts throughout the city that I've worked with that are calling me and asking the same questions that Randy asked me when we got in touch. Hey, we're thinking about really kind of putting something together. And I know we've got a lot of different security companies. I don't think they're talking. And it's not uncommon to have multiple businesses paying multiple security companies. None of them are communicating and sharing information. And the theme is you might be able to actually pay less and get better security. And that's really the theme. And that's what works really well. Now with Downtown Clean and Safe, what's nice is that, we've been doing this for many, many years. And being that we partner officially and contractually with the city of Portland, it's a little bit more efficient in that if you have a business, then you basically get a bill every year and you pay it. The city does collect our money and then pay us. So that gets a little bit easier to do that. But again, it's not like we're putting out 20 or 30 officers, downtown. Again, it's anywhere from 6 to 10, 2 shifts a day. But those officers are highly efficient and they're working really, really closely with the police bureau and sharing that information. Likewise, when the police bureau, they call it a flyer, they'll put out a flyer for somebody that they either have probable cause to make an arrest or that an officer wants to make contact with. They have reasonable, they have the legal reason to stop that person and detain them and talk to them. Likewise, the police bureau are able to put that information out to our security officers and also sometimes to our cleaners. So you might have 10 or 15 people out in any given shift that are not the police bureau, but are looking for this individual that is, potentially dangerous and the police need to find. And again, you're taking the 5 or 6 officers that might be working downtown, and now all of a sudden you're maximizing that, and you've got 30 eyes looking for that person. And then you compound that, what you're doing here, which we don't have so much. We have some residential areas and some condos downtown. It's primarily business during the day. What's, I would say, more advantageous is that if you can leverage you all in the community to work on that, then it just maximizes it even more and you become more efficient. So that's Downtown Clean and Safe. And what else can I talk about on that service district?
That's a good question.
Can I open it for a little Q&A?
Sure, if you'd like to.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions on what we're doing downtown? I know we're gonna wait for the questions at the end, but we do have some time. And part of it is, what do you think would work up here? What wouldn't work up here? Because again, a lot of the neighbors and community members that are contacting me are saying, we have to do something. We don't know what it is. We called a couple security companies. I don't think we can afford them. We're not really sure what to do with, how do you move forward? And again, my recommendation is simply you've got to build your network. You've got to get as many people involved on it as possible. And then to kind of work on it. Yes, sir.
Do you have a training template or what about training people
For
for neighborhood watch?
Great question, and I'll jump back into my old hat. So the City of Portland's crime prevention program, 2019 kind of stopped. And I won't get into all the drama of it, but we had a commissioner that didn't really support the traditional neighborhood watch programs. And so that's actually why I left the city. And for about 2.5-ish years, the city did not do neighborhood watch or all the community programs. The fun news is that program has revitalized. And I'll make sure that Randy has all this information. The City of Portland has 2 crime prevention, they're called community safety coordinators now. They're assigned to the North Precinct area. They run a program called Neighbors Together. It's very similar to Neighborhood Watch, and it can be formatted and shaped to however you, the community, want. But there is formal training from the city on a host of different things that basically is very, very similar to Neighborhood Watch. So how to be a good, safe observer, a witness, how to utilize 911 non-emergency, all the different reporting pieces that are there. And that's one of the things that's very confusing in the city of Portland. You have 911 and non-emergency. Most people, understand that. We have online police reporting. I always used to do, who here knows that you can file a police report 24 hours a day online? Who here knows that? Okay, I used to always start every training with that question as my unofficial survey. And again, I would do 2 to 3 neighborhood watch trainings all around the city. And I would have groups, not usually this big, but it usually be 10, 15 households. Maybe I get one hand that would go up. We've had online police reporting for, about 10 years, right? And conservatively, about 75% of our crime you can do in the convenience at your own time. You come home, someone steals something off of your deck, right? You have no suspect information. You go online, you fill out a police report. There will be no follow-up. We have officers on light duty or in the telephone report unit. They get that report, they read it. So it's an official police report. They generate a case, police report, they send it to you, and then you get your statistic, right? So part of this training that is available to you, and again, I'll make sure Randy has all the contact information. They can come out and they can train this group and any group on all of the different systems and reporting features in the city. So you have crime and you have 911 non-emergency, you have online crime reporting. There's a whole nother host of reporting. It's pdxreporter.org, which is 12 categories of livability. So that's all your illegal camping, debris in the roadway, power lights that are out, that's graffiti, that's abandoned vehicles, all those types of things. And their job, again, the community safety program with the city is to help you navigate the city's public safety system to make sure that you're reporting what items where and how to put that in place. So they can absolutely do that. They also, the same program, do full security assessments. And again, I would highly encourage you to utilize that. It's free. And these folks are all certified to come out and they can come to your home or your business or both if you have both of those on the island. And they can do a full security assessment. And that's another big piece of it is the criminal that's walking through your neighborhood. If it's super conducive to crime, there's lots of goodies to steal. They're going to keep on coming back. And I know the car prowl thing is very, very frustrating because most people at this point know that you lock a car and keep it what we call showroom clean condition. And then they're still crawling under and stealing catalytic converters and they're still breaking in. And it just shows how desperate, a lot of folks are. So long-winded answer, yes, there is programs and trainings that the city can put on for you. Absolutely. And I would tap into those. I can certainly help you connect directly with those folks. Yes, sir.
Yes, does your program have a volunteer component where people in the community can work directly in your organization as volunteers?
That's a great question. No, Downtown Clean and Safe currently does not have a volunteer program. And it's interesting with our new contract renewal, which I'm actually pretty excited about. We're going to be doing our cleaning and security. It's going to be the same. We're going to be changing our security program a little bit. We have a lot more oversight and accountability, which I welcome, and a lot more reporting on that. One of the things we are doing is we're standing up a mental health outreach program. So I'm in communication with Multnomah County Mental Health and Project Respond and all the different city and county agencies, as well as a lot of the nonprofit social service agencies working on this, because one of our big pieces that's missing in public safety is you have people that are not committing a crime, but they're obviously in a mental health crisis. And just to be frank, nobody's doing anything to support them or help them to get in a better place. So we do not have a volunteer program. But as we're reshaping Clean and Safe, I have to be honest with you, that's a good idea. And I know that's a frustrating part too with budget cuts. I started in crime prevention. I worked at the Kenton Contact Office, it's the Masonic Lodge in downtown Kenton, if you recall. It's now a barbershop. It's a very cool barbershop. But that was a community police contact office, and it was staffed by police volunteers. Frank and Janet, they were wonderful, right? And then in 2010, when the city decided to close the old North Precinct, they laid off the volunteer coordinator, and we no longer had volunteers at that, and we had multiple community contact offices, and that kind of shrunk. And so I'm challenging the police bureau a little bit to maybe start looking at volunteers again, because people ask me that all the time when I was with the city, is, can I volunteer for the crime prevention program? Can I volunteer for the police bureau? And we didn't have a volunteer program either. So again, long-winded answer, no, we don't, but we should look into that for sure. Yeah. Yes, right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, but thinking of that, what we already have going on the island is a volunteer program related to the trash pickup and adopt a block. There's at least 7 of us that go out regularly picking up the trash in here. Many of the businesses are great about letting us dump the trash in their dumpsters, some not so much. So what would be helpful is you're one to volunteer, take a couple hours a week and get out here and pick up the trash because nobody else is going to.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I think Frank is the gentleman that started that. I met with him, back in February when the mayor started a bunch of action tables. One was the Clean and Green table. And I want to say the numbers are amazing, how many adopt a block programs there are. And that's something too. I know a big focus here is safety and crime prevention, but livability is a big piece to that. And it sounds like you already have folks that are doing that. And I would encourage you to look at the cleaning component. A big part of crime prevention is, when you look at an area and there's trash and there's graffiti, we call it the broken windows theory, right? You have one broken window, nobody fixes it. Then there's another broken window, nobody fixes it. And then you're like, no, nobody cares about this community. I think I'm going to start selling drugs here, right? Versus you show up and you see that broken window, then I come back the next night and the window's fixed, right? And then you compound that by the term I would always use, and I heard it tonight a little bit, was being obnoxiously friendly, safely, right? But criminals hate it when you're like, hey, how are you doing today? It's good to see you. Yeah, have you seen the sunset? Have you been down to West Island? It's wonderful down there. So good to be. Do you live on the island? It's nice to meet you. We're super chatty. We all talk to everybody. We prevented so much crime, and we got so many drug dealing, especially, to get out of neighborhoods because they just couldn't sit there for more than 5 minutes without somebody waving and saying hi, honking their horn. Hey, how you doing? Right? So yeah, I would encourage you to look at livability. Well, I know it's hard with all of the illegal camping, and I'm sure hoping that the city and the county are going to put some programs together to kind of work on that. But that's another part for the volunteer component. And again, when you're out cleaning trash and doing that, you're out in the community. And if you're trained at looking at all these different parts to it, you're going to see things. And that's where you can really leverage CSI and say, we were out doing our weekly cleanup and we noticed an RV and people were visiting the RV every 3 or 4 minutes. And that seems weird. Who has 2 or 3 minute conversations with 5 different people in 5 minutes, right? You either very social people that like short conversations or drug dealers, right? So again, when you have a mechanism of reporting that, it's just maximizing all of that coverage. I think you had a question.
Yeah, you do a fabulous job. You're really working hard to do everything right. However, it's from the bottom up situation. Why is it that we have 6,000 criminals in this city terrorizing us every single night? And why is it that nobody has identified these people? They need to be identified. They need to be photographed. So you have a record of them. Every person sleeping on the street can be identified. And there's no one enforcing the laws. The taxpayers cannot camp anywhere in a zombie trailer. That's against environmental laws. Why aren't these laws enforced? You're doing a wonderful job. But, the city of Orlando has 4,000 residents. They have 2,000 police force. I was just there. Orlando and Portland has, 7,000, 8,000. And we have nothing to protect people that live here. Even a million people living here, and there's no protection. So you are suggesting wonderful things. However, why is it looks like Ted Wheeler is privatizing the law enforcement?
A lot of great questions. And again, I certainly don't have all the answers. I'll tell you that I get that question from a lot of business owners downtown. I have a lot of business owners that are wonderful employers and care deeply about their staff. And staff attrition or staff retention and patron retention are the two big buzzwords that I hear. And I'm working with small little one-person shops all the way up to massive big buildings with hundreds of employees, right? That generate tens of millions of dollars in revenue for the city. And they're asking the same exact questions.
I represent the film union, IATSE, been a lifetime member. We cannot bring films back to Portland. We've employed over 12,000 people in the past years. We cannot do that anymore. They will not come here. They're going to Montana and they're going outside the city.
So what I'm doing downtown to address those questions is when I talk to a business owner and they'll literally say, Mark, convince me it's getting cleaner and safer down here, right? And, and keep in mind, a lot of these folks pay lots of money to clean and safe. Our budget's about $6.2 million a year. And so if you think about it, if you have a big high rise, it's several $100,000 a year. And what I do to answer some of your questions, which I totally understand and get you, is I'll explain what we have in process, the resources that are available. We run 2 different trainings a month. These are all available to you, and I'll share all these with you. They're on our main website. We do a personal safety de-escalation training. Again, that's from my old program. We have a 2-hour presentation from a police officer by the name of Chase Bryson, who is with the Behavioral Health Unit. Gives you kind of an overview of the mental health crisis, both nationally and down to the state level in the city of Portland. We talk about our security program. We make sure that business knows how to call us and get our officer out there. We have multiple locations downtown, like childcare centers and more vulnerable locations where we have extra patrols from our officers so that we can support those businesses. And I hear you loud and clear, because the reality is Clean and Safe is an enhanced service district, meaning we're supposed to be enhancing existing city services. And the city, and again, I'm just being cut and cheated, no political agenda here. The city falls short on a lot of this essential city services. And so I'll put this out to you is that, because it's a tough question, I don't have all the answers, but I can't guarantee much, but just like when I would say about reporting crime, I can't guarantee much, but I can guarantee if you stop reporting crime and you stop looking out and working on the things you're working on tonight, things will only get worse and they will never get better. What I enjoyed most about my time when I was with the city and community organizing is I would start with a neighborhood, they'd have a drug house or whatever the issue would be, long-term chronic issue. A lot of times, the only way we would get that solved was by getting that entire neighborhood, 10, 15 households, 20, 30 people together, organized to advocate like hell to their city council to get something done, whether it's to get the RV finally towed or to get enough political pressure to get something working on. And the hard part is, yes, you need to participate in your activity. You need to be a good citizen. You need to report things, this and that. But a lot of neighborhoods would become a part-time job. I worked on a drug house right by the interstate, Fred Meyer, for I think it was 7 years from start to finish. It took us 7 years to finally get that house vacated and working on it. So my quick and easy answer is by doing things like tonight and growing this network and really kind of going full steam and literally focusing on your immediate neighborhood and on the island. What's cool about it is, right, you're an island. And it's very challenging when it comes to crime prevention, right? Because there's one way on, there's one way off. I can steal stuff, and in about 2 minutes, I can be in a whole different state. Correct me if I'm wrong, Portland Police, but I don't think they follow up in the state of Washington for low-level crimes. No, probably not, right? No fault of our police. It's just because we don't have the resources. But the other part to that is that you can literally maximize the fact that it's a smaller community and expanding that organization to it. And I will share this with you too. There are more community groups and more organized groups working on public safety advocacy at the highest political level than I've ever seen since I've been in the city since 2002. I'm not recommending or endorsing any of these folks. You've probably seen them on TV. There's people from Portland. There's the Rose City Downtown Collective, the Public Safety Action Coalition Group, PSAC. I used to actually run the North Beach Act with Mike when he was the commander. It was a lot of fun. I actually chaired the Public Safety Action Coalition group downtown for the 2 years that I was out of the city and before this job. And that downtown public safety group is now a nonprofit. It is citywide. It has a tremendously diverse board. And I'm very proud of the fact that the candidates that we endorsed, all but one, got elected. We turned into a nonprofit so that we could focus exclusively on the elections last year, the city council, and start shaping the politics a little bit in the city. So I don't know if I answered your questions. I hear you loud and clear. Everyone's asking those questions. And the cold hard reality is that the city should be able to provide an acceptable level of public safety through your tax dollars. And they just aren't, and they won't for some time.
How come they don't have this problem with Lake Oswego?
You know what, if you go outside of the city of Portland, even though most agencies are hiring, you don't see the attrition problems, you don't see the retention problems. And the easy answer for that is there's a much higher level prioritization and support for public safety, not just the police, but public safety. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go, I'll go here then, go ahead.
You started to talk slightly about drugs. So, when you're doing the report about vandalism or burglary, it's obvious you have something to prove. But what if you just suspect that there is a drug issue going on? How do you get something done about that?
Yeah, like you see things, you don't see exchange, you don't know that's for sure it's drugs,
Right,
but
but it's
you're,
very obvious that things are not right.
yes. Well, I mean, that's where you look at it, if you're working with this group as it grows and develops, right? So let's say you have an RV that parks down over by Schooner Creek, you walk your dog, or you're there picking up trash, or whatever, and all of a sudden you see a lot of people coming and going, you see people going into the RV with a backpack and coming out with nothing on their back, right, or vice versa. Again, you have no concrete evidence that it's drug dealing, but it's highly suspicious. It's reporting that information, and then even though the police are very understaffed, a big part, and that was one thing working with Randy is you've got to partner with your precinct and with the officers that work out here. And I'll let Officer Jaco talk a little bit more about what district officers are assigned out here, because that's more appropriate for him to talk about it. But I'll say in Central, it's working with our neighborhood response team. So if a business owner says, Mark, I think they're dealing drugs over at 8th and Cooch downtown at this parking lot, then usually our next step will be working with our neighborhood response officer. And those are, officers that are not taking regular radio calls that can kind of work on that. So if it's okay, I'll maybe let you talk a little bit about if you suspect there's drug activity. The super challenging part to this is, and we're struggling with this it's really challenging downtown because of Measure 110 and the decriminalization of personal amounts. So our drug dealers will carry 49 pills of Oxycontin, and that's a personal amount. So if I have 50, then it's potentially a crime. So on top of many, many bureaucratic and legislative things that we're dealing with, Measure 110 kicked in. Again, I'm not taking a position saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that it's very difficult to prove that you're dealing drugs, especially at a felony level. And for most of the times when our officers downtown stop or interdict with people, the most that they can do is write them a violation to citations, like a speeding ticket, for having personal amounts of drugs, because we have decriminalized personal amounts of all drugs in the state of Oregon. So it gets a little bit tricky.
Trafficking, they're literally supplying on
That's,
the island.
yeah, and we have that too, and that's where we really tap into the neighborhood response team with the precinct. And again, we're leveraging our security officers and our cleaning staff and the community to a limited part to saying, hey, we think there's something going on here. We actually have a couple locations. I can't get the details on it, but we have certain locations where, just like we did in crime prevention, the community is acting as the eyes and the ears of documenting a lot of this activity. So they know that if a blue Mustang comes up to this intersection, they're going to document that, right? And they're helping the police be more efficient because we don't have the drugs and vice division that used to be able to work on that. So I'll come back to you in 1 second. I think we had a question.
Yeah, we have one huge attractive nuisance in this area, and nobody's brought up yet, and that's the bottle drop. They closed them all around the city, and they left ours open because the state representative, she said it's a source of income for keeping people from falling through the cracks. Problem is if you'll see how many bicycles come across that bridge from Vancouver, loaded with garbage bags full of cans, they're hitting the bottle drop, and then not 2 years ago, we had a drug load on the river. You had 40 or 50 people lined up right next to Pier 99, lined up at 7 o'clock in the morning, every morning on the nose. A little skiff would go over, sell them all the drugs, they'd all disperse. And every morning, and finally the river patrol ran the boats off, or they did something about it. We were kind of told to kind of be careful around those people, because at 11 o'clock every night, a big motor yacht would come cruising down, stop those two boats, and then head up river. This has been going on. I've lived on the river for 19 years, and the past 5 or 10 years, we've seen it increase more and more. And these aren't small players.
No, and again, what's important for me to share is things that, because, it's by no means perfect downtown. We have significant challenges. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I worry about it. I do a monthly tent count in Old Town, which is just 40 blocks of my 213 blocks. Last month, it was 248 tents. This month's 300 tents. And the open street drug dealing is getting worse every week downtown. But I will say this, though, we've got certain locations where the neighbors got together and worked with Clean and Safe, worked with our security, worked with our partnership with the precinct to get together. And just last week, we had 2 community-led meetings to focus on 2 levels. And we had some of the highest people in the police bureau and in the city to kind of work on this. And again, we shouldn't have to do this, but we are where we are. And it's putting a lot of weight on those intersections, and the community very respectfully saying, we are here to be part of the solution. We're here to help, but we're not the police and we're not the district attorney. Actually, we pay you to do that, right? And we're not going to let this continue. So what are we going to do about it? And there's been some really good success. And the hard part is we have a lot of locations that we're managing on that. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it all comes back to the larger you can grow this network, you're going to have tangible crime prevention from making it more challenging for the criminals. The long-term goal of that is you're going to have a unified voice to advocate for these issues. So if it's a certain location that's just chronic, it's been going on. I have those locations downtown by a college. Mark, we watch it every day. We've watched it for 10 years. And you know what? The police will come out, make a bunch of arrests. They go downtown. They're out in about an hour. They come back, right? And so what do we need? Bigger pieces to that. We're looking at, legislatively and other things that I know it's very complex and broad. But again, the way you're going to potentially get these things addressed is by the largest number. And that's the saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and it takes a lot of time and energy, but you can get it through. It can work. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm just concerned about the individuals and businesses that can't afford to pay for the enhanced service that Clean and Safe provides.
So in downtown, the way it works is that, and this is the difference of some of the ESDs, and it's something for this group, at kind of the next levels, and Randy can talk a little bit about that in the end. What works downtown is that if you have you own property, you get a bill. It's basically like a tax, and there's a lot of debate about it. But again, it's prorated. So you might have some businesses that might pay $400 to $500 a year to be part of Clean and Safe. Your small little shops or small little buildings, versus some of the larger buildings that pay, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the efficiency piece, and again, I'm not going to take a stance on it. It is what it is. My job is just to make sure my vendors are doing their job and supporting. But it literally is that the city, with our contract, the city sends a business a bill, they pay it, the city gets the money, and then the city gives us the money twice a year, right? That goes to Clean and Safe. So that efficiency piece is that you have that stable revenue, and they try to make it as even and fair based on size and all those types of things to it. So the source of funding, as well as the contractual obligation with the city, is a big efficiency piece, right? Like, for example, we pay for these 4 Portland bike officers, and since they are what we call contract officers, even though they're under the complete control of the commander, I just like it when I can hang out and have a cup of coffee with them. I went on a ride around with them on the bikes. I don't tell them what to do at all, right? They do not work for me. They work for the precinct commander. But because they are, we pay their salaries, they are not part of what's called a deployable number. Every precinct has a deployable number of officers. So basically, they are held kind of harmless to the staffing challenges that they're dealing with. So they can stay on their bikes, they can stay dedicated to the downtown core area, and they literally can respond to our security team when it's a crime or it's a safety issue. So it works really well. Again, the funding sources for the 2 other enhanced service districts are different. It's a mix of tax or parking revenue from parking meters, as well as other city funding, and I believe there's some other private capital that goes in that as well.
So just to follow up, that you serve everyone on the island, even those places that did not contribute are not in a place where they can.
Well, that's why Randy asked me to come out here, is to kind of give you an overview of the current enhanced service district model, and highlight what works really well and what you can poach from me and from our programs. And I gladly will share everything I already shared in my old neighborhood watch packet and anything that we do. Same thing with our trainings, and I work very closely with the other 2 enhanced service districts, their executive directors. When it comes to trainings, resources, we share all of that. So whether it's our monthly trainings that we're doing, because we're doing 2 a month, again, the personal safety is the big one, de-escalation. Literally, what are good tips for when I park my car at 2 in the morning and I've got to walk across the street and there's a guy sitting over there and I feel, what should I do? How should I walk? How should I talk? It's very nuts and bolts. And then that's compounded again by the other training, more kind of what's going on. So, yeah. Yes.
So Mark, I know you've got data, but where is the major crime on the island? Is it from the retailers or is it being robbed in your mortgage?
I have to be honest with you, I don't know specifically that. I haven't been doing crime prevention up on the island. I haven't looked at the recent stats, so I might defer that to the officers to talk a little bit more about. I know when I was up here doing things, it was a mix. The mortgages, it was kind of fun. Jansen Beach Mortgage was the first security assessment I ever did in 2008. And I think they were averaging 10 to 15 car break-ins a weekend. And so.
And it's how many bad checks and shoplifting.
Yeah, and I will say, and I think you mentioned it, Randy, was every month, crime prevention, the police, a lot of the security vendors would meet at the mall. I believe it was the manager of the mall would meet at the mall every month. It was very similar to my downtown security network. And this went on, and again, this hasn't taken place for quite some time, but the whole time I was up here, we'd meet once a month. And again, it was sharing the chronic shoplifters. You know, it's, hey, I'm Mark, I'm from this HOA, and we've had a rash of these types of theft. Is there anything unique about it? Any patterns, any suspect information? You're sharing all that information. Again, the island is cool in many, many ways. The challenging part is that late at night with my little boat, my little electric motor, right? I can play a little ninja and steal all kinds of goodies off your, you know.
I'm just thinking that's a smaller level of theft than from the mall.
Yeah, I don't know exactly as far as losses and how prolific crime is.
Okay, well, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir, in the back.
I can speak up at that part.
Okay. So I'm going to hand the meeting over to Mike Leloff, who again, he was your precinct commander. I had the pleasure of working with Mike. We ran the North PSAC meeting together. So I will hand the floor over to Mike. Thank you very much. Again, I'll be here after the meeting if you have any questions. Thank you for coming. And I would challenge you all, put a couple hours a month into this and let it grow. It works. It really does work. It's frustrating and you shouldn't have to, but it works. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, we are so grateful to have Mark be able to come out here. He has the model that's been working for 30 years, and he's willing to help us to get that going here on the island. And we just are really grateful that he was able to come out. Thanks. Next up is Mike Leloff. He's going to talk to us a little bit about how private security can be beneficial and how having our own private security, our own security force on the island can be helpful. Go ahead. Thanks, Mike.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So for those that don't know me, I began being a police officer in 1985. Makes me a little bit on the older side. And I did it for 31 years and I retired out of the Portland Police Bureau as an assistant chief. I was your precinct commander from 2011 to 2015. Steve and I worked with each other. Hello, how are you? You're a little on the younger side. You just get hired?
Yes.
There you go. Outstanding. So I'm biased. I love these people, and they've been through a heck of a time for the last year or so. So what you're talking about here is community solutions. And as challenged as it is at the city level, and you did have almost 1,100 police officers back in the day. In fact, when 1990 rolled around, 1989, they were trying to hire 200 more police officers to begin community policing, and I was one of the first 6 to get hired. And the work we did. So I like to tell stories, right? It's the best way for me to kind of get my thing out. But I love community solutions because what's happening right now is you have about 795 of them. And when I was your precinct commander, I had about 130, 132 cops, 25 sergeants. And last year you were down to about 80 to 85 of them in the precinct. And you were putting out 6 or 8 of them a shift. Now you're back up to about 107, I think, in your precinct, and you're putting out about 12 a shift. I was putting 18 to 20 a shift, with the exception of night. So the challenges you're having as a city is really where Randy and Tracy want to stay away from the politics of this. And let's talk about the infant you're born that just is being born, the community solutions. And that's you. And so going back to about 2011, there was an intersection that was full of robberies and homicides. And it was very disorganized. And a group called Albina Killings We're Safe Neighborhood Committee brought together the stakeholders. And like what Randy and Tracy are doing, right? Bringing the stakeholders together. There was a meeting where we need more police. We need more of this. We need more of that. And what came out of it was some really wonderful community solutions where we actually had people volunteer. We did training for the community. We did neighborhood watch. We had people in green, popsicle green t-shirts started walking the block. And within 6 months, we dropped violent crime 50%. And we held it for 6 years. I retired in about 2016, went on down to the State Academy, was in charge of training for a while. And now what I do is I'm a private security provider. And I look back on the days that I was a police officer and all the things that came with that: training, education, community organizing, community solutions. And I always tell people when I was a cop, I'm not a cop anymore, but if it's a homicide suspect, just let them go get it. They'll take care of that. But everything else you should be involved in. Everything else you should be involved in. You have shoplifting, you have catalytic converters, you have theft, you have drug dealing, you have people in kayaks coming up and stealing your little boats. You have waterway problems, you have camping problems, you have homeless problems, the list goes on. And if you had 11 or 1,200 of them like you should, you'd be in a better place, but you don't. So now you're looking for a community-based solution. And how does security come to part of that? So I met Tracy and Randy a year ago. They asked me to come out and do an assessment. I came out and did an assessment. I didn't charge them a dime, I just came out and did an assessment. And we looked at their problem within a little micro of the island, Jansen Beach Moorage. And they said, you need to do a couple things. And they were well ahead. They were already putting cameras in. And then we put a patrol system in for the guard service. And we put a guard out there. And the one thing I told the guard, you got to care about them. And we've reduced problems significantly. Our system that we're using has all the reports that go into it so that we can start capturing the data just at one little place. One little place. Now try to imagine how you're going to do that on the island. But at one little place, we're seeing what happens at Jansen Beach Moorage and where they're vulnerable. And then we fix it through proactive strategies. And our guard company, and one of my friends is right here, he's got a guard company, he works out here, right? And he and I talk often. In fact, we're using the patrol system, right? We're using the same patrol system. And that was based off a conversation in my garage at my house. He lives down the street from me. But having your security company be part of the solution, one part of the pie. Your pie is the police, it's the prosecutors, it's the community, it's security, it's your businesses. And the same thing back in 2012, 2013 on Lottery Row. Lottery Row had 12 businesses. They represented 47% of the crime on the island, 41%, sorry, 41% of all crime was just the 12 businesses. We reduced that by 21%. Through solutions, through strategy, through thinking about how to, if you sit down and you look at the problem and you actually, you're not waiting for, you're not reacting to it, you're actually thinking about how to solve it. And I know that my friend here has reduced a lot of issues for his client out here on the island by thinking about the problem, critically thinking and problem solving, and then putting solutions and strategies into play. And one of that is I got a couple clients downtown, so I work with the DSN. I work with Mark, and it's a beautiful thing when you see a shoplifter come through and it circulates through all 213 blocks. This guy did this. This guy broke this window. This guy's doing that. And then on a major scale that we've dealt with for the last year, the information flowing about protests, where they're going, who's doing what, so that my clients, our community, can prepare for those events. So we've really tested that network system. And again, it's not perfect. In Lloyd Center, we participate every month. Security professionals, businesses, residents of Lloyd Center, and we do it on Zoom. We've been doing it on Zoom ever since the pandemic. And what's what's great about it is one client, one person will be talking. Ziggy was talking one day about a Subaru that hit him one night. And it's like, well, Subaru hit my client too. And it's like, who got the license plate on the camera? So that we can package that up and we can hand it to the resource deficient police, right? So one of the things that I like to try to do is we try to put everything into our system that's happening at JBMI or one of our other clients. And we put in video, we put in pictures, we try to get a picture of the guy's face that took out our $5,000 window, and then we package that up and we're able to give it to the police. Because there's not enough of them. I'll also remind you that when I had 132 of these folks, I also had a full contingent of traffic, I had a full contingent of drug and vice, I had a gang unit, had a gun violence unit. Those things don't exist today. Your traffic division is about to go away completely, I think, right?
And we have no response. We have 0 neighborhood response team for more.
Right. So your fatalities on the streets are going up, your homicides are going up, and your shootings are going up. So this is an infant that you're trying, that's just been born, right? Hayden Island CSI. And what it's trying to do is trying to leverage things in real time. What do you have right now? Because things will change in a year from now. You've got some things at the political end that are working through the system now, right? You haven't talked about 300 more cops. You haven't talked about a higher retiree hire program. But what do you need to leverage right now? So some of the things you can leverage right now is the community, the businesses and the community that live on Hayden Island. There's 2 ways on, 2 ways off. Sorry to argue with you. There's actually 2 ways on, 2 ways on. One from the north, one from the south east, right? Leverage your security services, and like Randy and Tracy talked about. One of the things they wanted me to do is start building relationships with the other guards, and we're doing that. So the Denny guard that's standing there dealing with an issue, and my guard that's sitting at JBMI, they're helping each other. Or the mall security, Securitas right now, we're watching out for each other's back. We actually put their phone numbers into our phones. And that hasn't really happened. So we're trying to leverage the security providers here. Can you imagine if you take what you have right now, you are spending, I'll get to you, but when I get on a roll, I get on a roll. But how many, you got 15 providers at least. How much do you think that is in dollars? Spending well over $1 million out here. I guarantee you, you're spending over $1 million out here on security already. Now, if they talk, pardon?
Who's paid for that?
Each business right now. JBMI pays for me. So I'm United Security, so JBMI pays, I give them a proposal and they agree to pay me. That gentleman right there owns his own company and he's got clients and they pay him. So imagine the power of leveraging all the security services into a meeting every month to share information. Imagine the power of leveraging your resources to share reports, share information. And it's one of the dreams that I have because they're running in here and it takes them about 3 minutes to take the catalytic converter out of JBMI. They cut through the fence, so they've done damage to the fence. They cut the catalytic converter off, 15 to 2,000 bucks, and then they run over to the next West Hayden Island and do it, and then they run over and they run over and they run over. So how can you leverage the resources? And so it's kind of what Randy outlined, right? Communication and communicating among this group. So he's already making it simpler, just log on and be able to report your crime. It is imperative that you report, and report. As mad as you get, as frustrated as you get, report. Why? Because in 2 years from now, they're going to be in front of budget. And when they go in front of budget and they say, you actually have 17% reduction in crime. And that isn't right. I know crime's up.
We have Metro Watch at Jansen Beach Mobile Home Park. They do not leave their cars, they drive through, and when you call Metro Watch, nobody knows where they are. And once in a while, you find them sleeping in a corner somewhere, and they don't show up. And then they leave at 1 o'clock in the morning
So there's several kinds of security services.
Why?
There's several kinds of security services. You can do a drive-through, you get 3 checks on a night, you get 2 minutes a night, they drive through and then they leave and then they come back and they leave. We're a static yard, we stay in JBMI all night long and then we use our cameras and our touring system. So you get what you want, right? You decide what to do. You decide what to do. So what I recommend is you really think about who you're hiring and make them give you a proposal and actually make them involve themselves with this group. The other thing I would love is that we all have radio capabilities. This is a dream. It isn't happening, but it is a dream that we actually be able to. I use a FirstNet first responder phone for my officer out here. It has a push to talk radio and it's a FirstNet, which means that in a natural disaster or any other crisis that you may have, if a cell tower gets overwhelmed with phones, it'll drop everybody off. It's not a FirstNet first responder. I'm part of that network. So I stay up while your cell phone will drop off. But it would be really cool that all the providers out here actually had to have a radio that could co-communicate. Because it would be really great for Jeremy and I to be able to say, hey, he's running your way. I had a catalytic converter stolen. He's coming your way. And he works for a business. You have 1 or 2 clients out here.
Down here, I bet that's fun.
Yeah. So, it's imperative that we do that. So it's all about collaboration, coordination, and communication. I like to talk about the C's a lot. It really is imperative that this group here, this community solution continues to grow and you bring people along with it. And one of the places you bring security along with it. A security operations center out here would be easy to establish. A monthly meeting is easy to establish, and really information sharing is easy to establish. And part of that is you can just do it through a contract. They can tell me in a contract what they want me to do as a security, right? And when I met with them, a year ago, I guess, we talked about things that they wanted. And I was able to go, yeah, I can do all that. And it really has worked well, right? So we use a very sophisticated touring system. It's on a phone, so you log in, and then I can check whatever they want me to check every single hour, every single minute, whatever they want me to do. I just put it in my touring system, and the officer pulls up the touring system and can do what it tells them to do. So there's no more written paper postal. So I covered a lot.
You did.
What else?
No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Really appreciate that, Mike.
Yeah.
Again, I can't say enough for the individuals that we have here that are interested in helping out with Hayden Island. They care about our island, just like everybody here. They care about that. We're here because we like where we live and we don't want to leave. But if the crime keeps continuing the way it is, the livability starts going down, what options do we have? We basically have 3 options. We can either sit back and accept what happens to us, or we can move, or we can do something about it. And that's why we're here. We want to do something about it. And that's why Hayden Island CSI started, and that's why we're all up here right now. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about who we are. We have 6 board members now. Gary over here is another one of our board members. Gary has been instrumental in helping get out our newsletter and also working on our website. He's been great, as well as many other things. This is my wife Tracy. She's on the board. You probably, if you've gotten on social media at all, she's out there looking for the bad guys, watching what they're doing, reporting it, letting everybody know what's happening out there. She's very active in that as well. We have 2 more, but actually we have 3 more board members that weren't able to attend tonight, had previous engagements, some out of state, and all the same reason though. Care about where we live, and we want to do something as opposed to just sit back and see what happens. Let's see. Okay, this is the portion where this is our call to action. This is our call. What can you do? If what we've talked about is at all interesting to you and you're wondering, okay, what can I do in order to help out with this? What can I do to help start trying to do something about this crime on the island? these are the things that you can do. Number one, first of all, go to our website and sign up for the newsletter. Again, that's our number one way, our first way of starting to connect everybody, letting everybody know what is the problem. If there's an example of the newsletter that's back there, you can go take a look at it, and it shows the crime statistics each month. So every month you're going to get the crime statistics of what's happened in the previous month. And like I said, our goal is, first of all, to see that really spike up as more people start to get as we start to get a more accurate picture of what's happening when people are reporting what's really happening, because we know things aren't getting reported right. Number two is report every crime. Every single crime, even if you come out and it's just a small, somebody broke my window, report it. Go online and fill out the police report, and also fill out a report that comes directly to us. And number three, encourage others to also fill out the reports. We have like around somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 residents. I think there is 2,500 in the last census, but we know that there's more residents on the island now. So it's probably close to 3,000 residents. And we don't have 3,000 people in our room now or on the Zoom meeting. So not everybody was able to attend. So encourage everybody in your neighborhoods to also report it. Talk to your management or your whoever is working with getting the message out to everybody, to have a policy in place when something happens to somebody in the community, that there's a policy as far as following up to make sure that it has been reported to the police, and then also to us, so we can start to get that data all together. The fourth thing is volunteer. Okay, we're just, like I said, we're just getting started in our infancy, and there's no way we're going to be able to sustain this. Okay, this isn't my job, and I'm not going to make a dime ever from working out here. Ever. That's not my goal here. My goal is to improve the livability. And as long as, I'm going to talk about a little bit more, but as long as we're on the board, no board member is ever going to make a dime from this organization. We need to Hayden Island CSI. That's not why we started it. That's not why we do it. And we're going to need volunteers. We're going to need volunteers, first of all, for helping to collect data, to sort the data, and then be able to display that data and make it easy for people to read it and to be able to see what's happening. We're also going to need volunteers, like I mentioned before, we have one business liaison right now, and she's working with 23 businesses, but we have 160 businesses in order to talk to. So we need to duplicate her, and we need to have some other people that can work with her, talking to those different businesses, so that we can get everybody on the same page and everybody working together. For business liaison, we're looking for people who have either marketing skills or are used to talking to business owners, and can relate with that business owner of the difficulties and the trials that they're having right now with the crime that they're experiencing right now. The other thing we need are our neighborhood reps. So we have 16 different neighborhoods in our island. Right now I have reps for 2 of them, actually 3 of them, including ours. So we need reps for each neighborhood that's on the island, so that Hayden Island CSI can spread that information to the reps, and then the reps get it out to their entire community. And then it goes backwards the other way. You take the information from your neighborhood to the rep, and then the rep brings that information to Hayden Island CSI. So we're going to need reps from each individual community as well. That's a place where we can have volunteers. Another one is if you have a special skill set. We're going to need special skill sets that we haven't even thought about yet. So if you have some type of a special skill set that can be helpful in this organization as we go forward, go ahead and identify what that skill set is and let us know that you're willing to help. And last of all, if you just have some time and desire to help, we're going to need help doing all kinds of things that we haven't even thought about yet. And so if you want to volunteer, go to the website, and there's a place where you can contact us and just fill it out on there and say, hey, I'm interested, I care about our island, I don't want to leave, I want to take action, and go ahead and volunteer on there and let us know what you might be willing to do and how you can help out. We'll definitely get in touch with you and be able to put you in the right place in order to work on that. That's almost about everything that I have, and I just want to open up for some questions.
Randy, for those that didn't see, there's a site back there where you can put your email, phone number, and contact information to receive the newsletter.
Great point. That's a great point. And I meant to talk about that where I was talking about signing up for the newsletter. There's 2 places where you can sign up for the newsletter right now. Go online to our website. Again, the website is Hayden Island hayden-csi.org. It's haydenisland-csi.org. There's some business cards in the back where you can get that website and go onto the website and sign up for the newsletter. There's also a sign up sheet back there. So if you just want to put your email address down on the sign up sheet back there, that's another way you can sign up for the newsletter and start getting that newsletter.
What's the relationship between CSI and High Noon, if there is any relationship?
That is a great question. Because we've been approached many times to combine the two. High Noon is an excellent organization and it deals with the livability on the island. But they deal with so many different topics. They deal with such a variety of different topics. I mean, they're dealing with trying to get another grocery store online. They're dealing with the bridge that's going through. They're dealing with the new apartment building that's coming in. Okay, and those are all very important things about livability on the island. However, we decided that we wanted to start a separate one because we think that security is so important and it's so big that it requires just a focus on that. And we don't want to have to be, and also the other thing about High Noon is they do involve a lot of political activism and involvement. And again, like I said, we're trying to stay away from the political aspect. And so that was another reason we want to be separate from that. However, we're big supporters of High Noon, and High Noon is also supporting us. And so we definitely want to work together with High Noon, and we're going to work hand in hand with them, but they are separate organizations. That was a great question. Hold on 1 second. Before we get to the questions, there's two things that I know questions are going to come up, so I thought I'd just bring them up real quick before. One of them is there is a place on our website where there's an ability to give donations. People are probably wondering, okay, what are you going to do with these donations if I do donate to this organization? The number one thing we're going to start off with and where donations are going to go to is that command and control center. And we do need to hire, like I said, a full-time person that's going to be taking in all this data and then distributing it. And that's the first thing we were saving up in order to first of all fund that. That's the number one thing. That's where the donations are going to be going to first. And then second, once we're going to be trying to start solicit funds for this enhanced service district and trying to get donations again, we're in our beginnings. We haven't exactly figured out how we're going to have each individual entity on the island contribute proportionally in order to pay for the enhanced service district. There's two big directions we can go. One, we can try to do it on our own, or two, we can try to do it through the city. There's pluses and minuses of doing both. Okay, if we do it on our own, we can do anything that we want. There's no restrictions, and the city council can't tell us how we're doing. As long as we stay within the law, then there's no restrictions on that. If we go to the city, that comes with a lot of restrictions that the city council is going to put on us, as well as they take a large chunk out. They take a very large portion out in order to fund their solicitation. So we're still working on how we want to do that, and just a minute. And then the second question I know is going to come up because I get asked about it a lot is what are we going to do about our homeless camps, about our campers, about the people that are living on the streets right now? That's that's the $1 million question that everybody in the city is trying to work on right now. As far as Hayden Island CSI, one of the things that we met with some other members that are working with the adopted block. We met with another couple that are doing the adopted block, and this couple, they've taken it to the next level, and they've gotten to know many of the homeless people as they've been doing the cleanup. They clean up the different camps, but they also talk to them and they sit down and get to know these people. And I hate to use the term homeless people or campers because it kind of puts people in a lumps them in one category. And the fact is they don't belong in one category. These are all individuals, and the reason they're out there is all individual. They're there because some circumstances happen for that person. And the nice thing about working about this couple is that they get to know those people and they understand what has brought that person there. And they have a real desire and real goal to work individually with those people to get them to a place that it's a more comfortable living situation for them. And that's what Hayden Island CSI wants to support. We want to work with them, and we want to work with that couple to give them more resources, to give them more help, to find more volunteers that want to work with that model of getting to know those people and caring about them, showing them that we recognize that we're all just human beings trying to do the best thing we know, best we can. And then we want to help them find a better solution than living where they're at right now. And then the second part of that is, once we have our own security, is when new people try to come on the island and try to set up a camp, then we'll be able to give them encouragement to go someplace else in order to set that camp up. Because once they're here and once they're already living on the island, it's much more difficult to move them as opposed to if they're coming to try to set up a camp, just helping them to keep moving along and finding a better location. Okay. So I know those are two questions that are going to come up, so I want to address those two things. Let's see. Yeah, so we've also had, like Mark said, Officer Jaco joined us here, and we're really grateful that he was able to join us. Officer Jaco, he works on the island here often, and so he really knows what's happening. I mean, probably better than any of us, what's happening with the crime and who the individuals are and what's going on. So if you have some of those specific questions, we can only answer some questions specifically about that. We also have Sergeant Dangler over here with the Multnomah County River Patrol. And he's been super helpful as far as working with us and taking care of different problems that we have on the river. And he's also willing to answer some questions if you have some questions.
And which one is he?
He's on there pointing to somebody else.
You gotta take the name tag off.
Yeah. That's a giveaway. All right. So with that, anything else?
Got a question.
Right. Go ahead.
I just thought it was important to share maybe the social media that you guys do. I love the newsletter and really eager for that, but I think all the information that you're collecting, I know Tracy does such a good job of putting that on social media in real time. So I mean, I'm over right here at the KBC, and so we share that all the time as well. So you're already doing it. I think as a community, we would love to, we should promote that as well. I think it's important for us to see it daily and momentarily as we touch those information. I feel safer knowing that there's eyes and ears and I can be aware of what's going on.
That's great. So I think what you're referring to is actually the Neighborhood Watch page. So there's actually a Neighborhood Watch page that we've been doing on social media on Facebook. And in order to be a part of the Neighborhood Watch page, we made it so that everybody gets vetted. And because we don't want somebody that, we don't want the criminals being able to hop on and be part of that, because then they see who the people are that are out there watching them all the time. And we don't want to identify the people who are out there watching. And so in order to be part of that social media page, the Hayden Island Neighborhood Watch page, you have to be recommended by somebody who's already on the page. That's one of the requirements in order to get on there. Or if you just come up and if you message us and we'll meet you and we'll talk to you, and then we'll be glad to add you to the Neighborhood Watch page as well.
I have two things. One thing I want to thank the officers. I'm really sad to hear all the time they don't have support. And because that's awful, because they can't help us like they should. Anyway, they don't have the support from the city, the government, nothing. They don't. Second, why don't we have neighborhood watch signs on there? We used to years ago.
That's a great point. And so the question was, why don't we have neighborhood watch? Why don't we have neighborhood watch signs all over the place? And the biggest thing that I could think of is that I really don't know if they're helpful. Because one thing that I recognize is the criminals these days and the criminals that we're encountering now, they are so brazen that they come. A lot of the crimes, some of you have probably seen on social media, the person who pulled up in the Prius in the middle of the parking lot, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, crawled under the car, cut off a catalytic converter, while everybody's filming him.
That's right.
Everybody's around here filming him, and he just does it anyhow, crawls up there and cuts off. Because he knows there's gonna be no repercussions for it. So putting up signs like that, I don't see as being, we're looking for solutions that are really gonna help. And I haven't seen that putting up extra signs. Exactly.
Police use lines every day arresting criminals, and 80% of these people living in these vagrant villages, they arrest them and then they let them out 2 hours later, and they're doing the same thing all over again. This is a problem.
That is a problem, and those are the problems that everybody needs to talk to City Hall about. And then that's not what Hayden Island CSI is about. Again, we're trying to deal with the problem that we have. We're gonna take the facts that we have, and we're gonna deal with what we have. But those are definitely those things that you need to talk to the people who make the decisions, and absolutely join the groups that are working in order to do that too.
Well, the laws, we have to obey the laws for camping. The DMV is not checking the zombie trailers.
Right.
Enforce the laws that exist.
I couldn't agree with you more.
But
Exactly right.
let me just add for that. And bluntly, because I'm not a police officer and I don't work for the city, so they've been told they can't do things over the last year and a half. Moving campers and homeless people, absolutely was a Commissioner Ugaley said, don't do it. And what they've been told is they can't do things. And you're not getting prosecution right now, right? So again, looking at this as a community-based solution, what can you do? Because those things, this group doesn't want to get involved in politics. Those are all political decisions that have occurred over the last 18 months. But yes, so that's where that communication needs to be, right? Is with those people that are making those decisions. Not on them. They've been told, no, hands off. Right.
Okay, one second. I just want to talk to the Zoom members we have on Zoom. So the members on Zoom, the way that the format is, because we have people here and we have people on Zoom, we're not able to answer the questions from the people on Zoom right now. However, we do want to answer your questions, and we will absolutely answer questions. Please go on the website and go into the contact us now and ask your questions there, and I promise we'll get back to you with your questions. So go ahead, you had your hand up first.
Yes, I noticed that Oxford Suites put signs up on the private road out here, as well as Burger King, and yet the vehicles are still parked there.
You know,
So what gets done about that?
exactly, and
And
these are
it's private road, they own this road. these
Exactly.
businesses.
these are solutions that need to be going forward, and these are the things that we want to do. So in order to make a large impact, we need to get all the businesses that are on Hayden Island to agree that they're not going to allow campers on their property. Okay, and then because these guys, they can't go move campers because they're sitting there. Like if you see a camper, they can't go move them. But if a property owner says, I have a trespasser on my property, will you come and help me get this trespasser off of my property? Am I right?
Yeah.
Now they can. So if a business, and you're right, this road that's out here, it's private property. And so the owner has to have that person. You know who owns that property? My understanding is I went on got an app that looks who owns different properties, and it's actually Taco Bell. Taco Bell Corporation owns this road.
Representative, we're talking about that. I'm asking because I'm the Chevron, so I want to know, I want to communicate with that person. I
Right.
don't want them parking there because they're my problem.
Exactly.
But
And
there's
so,
no Taco Bell here?
exactly. So we need to get you in contact with the Taco Bell headquarters, because that's who owns the property. It's Taco Bell United or
I
something
have
like that.
inside track to Taco, so I got you.
Okay.
And my understanding is Oxford Suites paid out well over $1,000 out of their own pockets to put those signs up.
Exactly.
You
Yep.
know,
Everybody's doing what they can. But again, if every business is doing their own little thing, it has a little impact. If everybody combines and we organize and we work together and we say, okay, we're not going to take this anymore as an island. All the businesses, now we go to something and you have all the businesses saying one thing, it's a much bigger impact, and that's our goal. Okay, great. Go ahead.
Questions for
I just wanted to kind of clarify on the adopt one thing. There are folks that are really into working with the homeless people. And then there's, little old ladies like me who go, I'm not comfortable doing that. There's plenty of other trash.
Absolutely.
So if you are not wanting to deal with the homeless crowd, don't let that stop you. They send you everything, your pickup things, your gas, sharps, containers, the whole thing.
And we can't,
If you want to do something today,
Right.
get out and pick up trash.
And we can't support that enough. We can't say how grateful we are that there's individuals who are willing to go out there and help pick up the trash to make our island look better. We want to definitely support them and to encourage other volunteers to go along with that. Go ahead.
So I know we're in the infancy stage, so I'm curious about budget. Do you have a budget for the security? Will it be 24 hours? And then what's your timeline for possibly getting the ball rolling on 24-hour security? Because if I hire security, it's only gonna be for show.
Right.
And I think I speak for everybody here, that's not beneficial to any of us.
Right.
So I want to know before I hire somebody, what is your expectation for overall budget? Is it gonna be 24 hours of election time?
That's a great question.
You don't know, you can say you don't know.
I don't know. Because right now, here, okay, let me tell you what we do want to do. First of all, we want to get these other business liaison people who are talking to the businesses. And then we want to find out, we're going to tell them, we're trying to tell them what we are telling you tonight. And then we're going to try to, is this something that you want to buy into? Is this something that you're willing to contribute to?
Yeah.
And then, so we want to get, and many of the businesses are just like you. But we need those volunteers to talk to the businesses first and then find out if they are. And then we're going to try to find out, okay, what would that cost be? What my vision is to have a command post that has cameras set up all around the island. And he has cameras that he's watching, okay? You have two roaming officers that are roaming the island. Now, the person in the command post can watch the cameras and say, okay, I got suspicious activity over here, and direct his officers over there. Or he gets a phone call. I got a phone call from somebody over here. Can you run over here, take a look over here? So you have one person in a command post with two roaming officers. And yeah, so you have 3 officers 24 hours a day. That's my goal. When I talked to Mike Luloff about how much that would cost, it was going to be around $1.2 million to have that staff 24 hours. And when I divided that up to be between 160 businesses, and this wasn't prorating whatsoever. This was just, and which we would need to do, because Home Depot shouldn't be paying as much as the canvas making shop. They should be paying different amounts. And so, but it's approximately $500 per business per month. And so it's very affordable, and this is possible. And so maybe one business is paying, $5,000 a month, and another one's paying $100 a month. So that's the kind of thing. But we need to start talking to these businesses, finding out what they're willing to buy in, and then move into that. Okay. Okay, hold on one second. Does anybody have any questions for the officers? Go ahead in the back.
Are there any options specific to knowledge of our property crime, both felony and misdemeanor is coming from the camps, the homeless camps? To more work, I've seen in emails that there's organized crime units working.
I can certainly say that there is some, without a doubt. I would say that that's the majority of the crime in and of itself. We have 2 ways on and off the island, and a lot of people do commute from Washington. A lot of people come, straight up from northeast Portland also. So,
How should you go about what's your experience?
I would say quite a bit is related to that, because we just came from a call over where they have the Connexes by, in the old Red Lion flat lot right there, where the Connexes are all tagged. And we just recovered a vehicle for a guy They drove it over there and were stripping it out. It was the campers on the beach. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's happening. And there are definitely some involved in that. So
And I want to kind of address that also. Again, these different camps, they're different types of people and they're different reasons. So some of them are not participating in the crime, and then others are very much in the crime. And that camp that they're talking about, the one that's on the beach down there, has been identified as being a very high crime camp. There's been many boats that have been recovered there. There's been many other merchandise that's been recovered. That particular camp is a very high crime camp.
Yeah, we've arrested a multitude of folks out of there. We've also recovered 5 or 6 stolen boats as well as other stolen property. So surely there's crime emanating from that location. But again, there's folks that come from all over. So it's a wide variety.
They're now already housed in the roadway in, and they're all over the place. They hide their stolen goods from floor to ceiling. We know the guy who works there and has to clean up after them. It's a horrible mess.
Okay. Well, I happen to actually know the Dietrichs. I've been in close contact with the Dietrichs with our Red Lion property, the roadway in and the empty lot, as well as their 2 DSL permitted ships that were left behind after a gentleman passed away. So that could be a little work in progress that I have a conversation with the owners about. And just one thing, I really want to thank everybody that has actually come together. Because as it's been said, and I'll say it again, this is the first step to come to a solution. All right, it's getting together, working together. You letting me know what's going on, like the roadway in. I didn't know what was going on inside. I know it goes on outside. I didn't know what was going on inside. I'd be more than happy to talk to Trip Dietrich about that. So I appreciate your guys' time spent here, as well as the time, hopefully, that you'll dedicate in the future to helping out the cause here on the island. This is all our home. You know, we live here, work here, shop here. And I don't like to see it this way either.
And then one morning, there was 10 of us, 5 of us that called at least 5 times that morning when they come out for something serious and talk about me. Anyway, I called you guys in 5 minutes, you guys are out. And then that's happened before when I called. That's always happened in 5 minutes. Have something crazy going on. You guys probably been out there taking care of some of that a lot of different times, but you're always coming out there. They do. Yeah.
We try our best, and that goes for my friends here. I cannot tell you. I've been in public service for about 28 years now. 22 here at the sheriff's office. I've seen quite the pendulum swing. Same as the assistant chief. It's been an incredible last few years, and I hope we start seeing that pendulum going back the other way here real soon. There was a question in the back.
One more question. It's 8:30, so we have one last question here. So
Not the most important.
finish this up here.
Oh, they're all important.
If there's any validity, I'm from the Harvard Department, I'm a resident there, I've been told that the community room is open for different police officers to come in, and there's a Starbucks coffee card available at Starbucks, we can put additional money on. Does that work?
Picture of
This meeting being recorded, we can talk offline.
I didn't know if that was any, that you're so strapped.
But I was just at,
it's not gonna matter, or is that information you let anyway?
you know, for myself.
Thank you for that.
He must be a little closer to retirement than me. I was just at the Hayden Island Yacht Club meeting. I don't know if everybody was there. It was just the other day. So, I try to get around to different groups, different clubs. I'm more than welcome, or more than happy to come out, come and talk to groups. You know, we're trying to do what we can. And like I said before, we don't want to see it this way either. Anybody else?
Yeah, so given the vehicles that you drive, why did you agree with the dirt cops that there's only 2 ways on and off the highway?
So I know I always give Ron a hard time as I'm cruising by his house because I'm usually on some type of a watercraft. You got me good.
Yeah.
You got us all good, okay?
3 ways.
Well, wait, man, you can parachute.
So, you know, from large boats all the way down to PWCs, we've been rolling especially close to homes, not to bug people. But what we're trying to do is find these guys, you know, going in between the homes, stealing the kayaks, stealing the dinghies. Your sprinkler still hasn't got me, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to get wet. You know, I can say we're doing what we can. I know my friends here are in the same position. We're doing what we can with what we have. We hope to continue to, you know, come out of this little hole that we're in and, you know, build and be better in the future.
Appreciate. Your life better and allow you to enforce existing laws.
That the lady back there had a great idea.
Oh, goodness. All right, with that, we're gonna go ahead and close it out. I just want to say thank you again so much for everybody that came out.
That was good.
In the future, we're going to be working with the law enforcement. We're so grateful that they were out here. And when you see them, just tell them thank you for being out. Thanks.
Buddy, how are you?